People, they wonder, they wonder, they wonder.
Left, right, left,
Stevie
right,
Wonder, they there too.
right, left.
Now 1 week after first tattoo, in the broadcast to American satellite around that time to now, I say to you,
Right, left, right, left, right, left.
where these 1,000 soldiers, them they go.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, left.
Look, whoa, yeah, Marita.
Left, right, left, right, left.
Terrific morning to you out there. It's really great to have you on the podium this wonderful Saturday morning. And of course, we are going to do the real talk this morning. And obviously, we have our panelists who will be joining us on the program and our guests too virtually this morning. It's great to have you join us. My name is Gbolabo, Famous School. And you know, this is your laughter dial, 32 FM 94.9. And if this is your first time on the program, you do know that we open the phone lines and after thorough discussions and also allow you to be part of the conversation. And of course, we'll be starting off this morning with this particular editorial coming from the Punch editorial board. It is titled "Too Many Inmates Remain on Death Row," and the date is the 17th of October 2023. The editorial board of the Punch newspaper wrote a revelation that there are over 3,000 inmates on death row across Nigeria's correctional centers is alarming. It reflects a lack of value for human dignity and dysfunction in the criminal justice system. After conviction and passing of death sentences, the state governors whose responsibility it is to sign death warrants, commute the sentence or pardon the convict should stop shirking their constitutional responsibility and help decongest the custodial centers. The editorial board went ahead to say, generally it is a tough task. Unlike atrocities, leaders in many democracies are reluctant to enforce the death penalty. Argument over its rightness, effectiveness, and fairness rage across the world. According to Amnesty International, by law or in practice, 112 countries have abolished the death penalty. 55 countries, including Nigeria, retain the death penalty for capital offenses in their stated books. Advocates of abolition, including CSOs in Nigeria, have stepped up their campaign to scrap state-sanctioned execution. While that is ongoing, however, the reality is that Nigerian law prescribes death for certain offenses through the criminal justice system. The European Union Agency for Asylum lists murder, treason, assisted suicide, armed robbery, and fabricating false evidence leading to conviction to death of another person as offenses attracting the death sentence in Nigeria. And lately, death penalty for terrorism and kidnapping has been written into federal and state statutes. In the North, 12 states have adopted penal Sharia laws prescribing death sentences for certain offenses not accepted by most of the world as crimes at all. This has strengthened the hands of anti-death penalty campaigners who view it as the ultimate violation of human rights. Let's move ahead to see some of the conclusions of the editorial board on this. It says, though other governors demur, a former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshomola, in 2016, signed one death warrant. Former Delta State Governor Emmanuel Uduaha pardoned 3 inmates on death row following the recommendations by the State Advisory Council on the prerogative of mercy in 2014. Tinubu and the governors should activate the mercy machinery. Thorough reviews should be taken of each IDR case and options for clemency applied, including commutation to lesser or sentences. The awaiting trial population is scandalous. According to the editorial board, state governors and the state chief judges should take up this task with determination. And that concludes what the editorial board is writing in terms of the numbers of those on the death roll and how prerogative of mercy could be brought up again, especially by the state governors, to ensure that they decongest the prison system. It's an eyesore, especially when you have instances where the CJ of states or the Federal Capital Territory visits some of these prisons or correctional facilities. You will realize that It is very dilapidated. Talking about infrastructures is obsolete. And the living condition there, it's something that you don't even want to think about. And I think what the editorial board is trying to stress here, as a matter of fact, is to give life to people even when they are in jail or in prison, so that when you bring them back into the society, you're saying you're reintegrating them, not reintegrating crimes back into the main society. And I think that's quite instructive this morning. All right, it's still the podium, and it's coming to you live from 32 FM 94.9. And of course, we have our guest waiting already. One of our panelists is also waiting virtually, talking about Professor Remi Ayede, virtually joining us from Kenya this morning, who is also going to be joining this conversation this morning. Do remember that we are also live on our social media platforms. You can join us to follow through on the program this morning, 32 FM 94.9 Ibadan. That's on Facebook and also on YouTube. And also, if you want to do virtual via Radio Garden, you can also get us 32 FM 949 Ibadan on Radio Garden, so that you can actually follow through the program this morning. We'll take this breather and we allow our guest in and also our panelists to start off this morning's discussion. Please do stay with us.
My mama, will you give? She's the only mother of this country. That my mama, will you give? She's the only mother of Nigeria. Which kind of injustice is this? Waiting come from the government inside. If now unknown soldier. I said, waiting constant.
All right, we have barely 2 minutes to go on advertorials this morning. But before then, let me quickly bring in one of our panelists who is standing by. And of course, we'll introduce our guest properly after the break itself. But we have Professor Remi Ayede joining us virtually from Kenya this morning. Prof, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
It's great to have you this morning.
Yeah, it's
on
a
the
pleasure
podium.
to be here.
All right, how is it? All right. So how is it in Kenya this morning, Prof?
Well, it's a quiet morning, a bright morning, and we just came from a public holiday yesterday. Yesterday was Heroes Day, and the spirit of the weekend is just soaring.
All right, obviously that sounds better on your voice. It appears that you also relaxed a lot for the period in which the country is on holiday. But it's great to have you back on the podium. There's so much more that has happened in Nigeria itself. But why we are actually looking at the speed of insecurity in Nigeria, it's quite striking that the northern states are also very concerned about the spate of killings within their domain. And I'm specifically talking about Katsina. And it's when I looked at what the governor said, it was like, is this another joke? Because he was saying that as civilian, we must start equipping ourselves. We must start welding ourselves with weapons. And he talked about how much more the government needs to take the issue of security very seriously. Now, it takes us back to true federalism. How much more the states have power over the security within their domain. And that has been a major topic. But quickly, all right, I'm being given signals here. Prof, we'll come back to that. We have to pay this bill. We'll be back shortly.
Safasa pelisizo simnyama Iwasafa
You're listening to 32 FM 94.9.
Èrò máa wá o, ẹ̀dá gírí máa bọ̀ o. Sílé iṣẹ́ mi wá ń tó kalẹ̀ sójèlé. Kónílé ó gbọ́ o, kálejò gbọ́. Ẹ sọ fàdán kóró fún bẹ̀. Pélé iṣẹ́ mi wà Naturalist Care Limited ti kalẹ̀ kà sóje. Ọlọ́run ló kúkú dirí ẹwà fákùkọ tiwa. Gbogbo oògùn tó ń jáde nílé iṣẹ́ mi wà ń pátá ló wà níbẹ̀. Lówó tí ò ga jara lọ. Pẹ̀lú irinṣẹ́ ìgbàlóde lóníranran. Àwọn akọ́ṣẹ́mọṣẹ́ ń bẹ níkàlẹ̀ fáyẹ̀wò ara. Àwọn fi tó wa létí wípé àǹfààní ń bẹ fún gbogbo àádọ́ta ènìyàn kọ́kọ́. 50 tí wọ́n bá kọ́kọ́ ń dé lójúmọ́. Ẹ máa gba káàdì ọ̀fẹ́, àyẹ̀wò ọ̀fẹ́. Ẹ tún máa fi ẹgbẹ̀rún mẹ́ta náírà 3,000 péré gba oògùn lọ́dọ̀ wa. Ẹ tara ṣàṣà máa bọ̀ ní Àjọkẹ́ Plaza ní dojúkọ Swift Oil tó wà ní Tèmídìrí Òjé Ìbàdàn. Ẹ̀ló wa ní 080-340-51533. Ẹ̀mí wa ló sọ wípé ànífà ìsàn sọdún o.
ẹni tó fẹ́ ní mọ̀kúmọ̀ kó lè tó jẹ Adékúnlé Ajásin University Ìbàdàn campus tó gún wàsímù Fúlàní Hun College of Education Ìbàdàn Lagos Express Road ọ̀rẹ́ méjì axis Ìbàdàn lọ ní mọ̀kúmọ̀ ń bẹ kó o mọ̀ bá àdínísẹ́ olóṣèlú sáìtò ẹ̀kọ́ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ àwọn akẹ́kọ̀ọ́ tí ń gba fọ́ọ̀mù lọ enroll irúfẹ́ courses tó bá wù ọ́ ní kó yàn tó gba sabukéṣà àgùnbánirọ̀ lẹ́yìn àṣeyọrí English language political science accounting economics computer science biology health human kinetics social studies religious studies àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ rí pé o ní 5 credit tó ní math and English nínú Mondays to Fridays lẹ́kọ́ ìmọ̀ ìparí sẹ́ni tàwọn tó wà lẹ́nu iṣẹ́ Saturdays and Sundays AAUA management ńlọ́lù lóńdẹ̀ gbà.
Postgraduate diploma PGD in education ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ báyìí ní Fúlàní College of Education in affiliation with Adékúnlé Ajásin University Akungba Àkókò Ondo State.
Platform ní Eléwùrà Community Grammar School #1 Baálé Eléwùrà Street Eléwùrà Challenge nìbàdàn 5,000 ní fọ́ọ̀mù 40,000 ní school fees fún semester kan 070-3155-1555 tàbí www.aauaibadancampus.com. Ogun àtọ́pẹ́ kó máa jẹ́ tolúwa lórí òkè ìyanu Ìlara Ẹ̀pẹ́ ọdọọdún ni annual marathon miracle festival programs máa ń wáyé ọjọ́ mẹ́ta gbáko pẹ̀lú ọ̀kan òjọ̀kan ètò lórí òkè ìyanu Ìlara Ẹ̀pẹ́ láti gbólúwaga àkòrí glory to glory 2023 lábẹ́ àkóso bishop and prophetess Lucas tolúwa ń lò ní sáwa 25, 26, 27 October 2023 lọ́jọ́ àkọ́kọ́ ẹ pàdé prophet Sam Ojo prophet Fẹ́mi Òní prophet Taiwo Ojo níbi tí àdúrà today yóò ti máa rọ̀jò wọ̀wọ̀ mẹ́wàá àrọ̀dàgọ́ mẹ́wàá alẹ́ lọ́jọ́ kejì evangelist Tọ́pẹ́ Àlàbí evangelist Ebenezer Obey pastor Adélakùn Ayẹwà Dare Melody Chigozi Wisdom Adegbodu Twin Dare Justify Remilekun Amos Elijah Akíntúndé Ọlọ́run sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ aago mẹ́wàá àrọ̀ sago mẹ́wàá alẹ́ mọ́jọ́ kẹta àṣekágbá ló gbé gbogbo ẹ̀rù October 28, 2023 Rose Love Foundation Empowerment 2023 níbi tí gbogbo ẹni tó kù díẹ̀ káàtó fún ti gba òbítíbitì ẹ̀bùn pẹ̀lú ọ̀kan òjọ̀kan olórin ẹ̀mí ọ̀rọ̀ tìǹlẹ́nu Lanre Da Silva àti Dr. Ọlọ́ládé Valentine Màmá Olúṣọlá Ọbaṣádálága
telephone 07059458718.
ìpàdé di Mountain of Miracle Ìlara Ẹ̀pẹ́ àmọ́ retí yín o olùgbàlejò àgbà Bishop and Prophetess Lucas.
Feel better about your life.
32 FM, 94.9, the antidote to depression.
When the people became silent,
The government became oppressive. It's time to lend your voice to politics.
On 32 FM 94.9.
Safasa pelisizo simnyama Iwasafa
Isizo saba
Kavula mo
Anichaleni ko
Kelize Wemaye wemodo Safasa pelisizo simnyama.
All right, you're welcome back. You're still on to the podium, and of course, it's coming to you live here on 32 FM 94.9. And of course, in case you're just joining us, we're going to be discussing issues that pertain to our national development. And of course, we'll have our panelists already seated in the studio, and also we have our guest waiting virtually to join this conversation this morning. You can also join us on our socials, 32 FM 949 Ibadan. That's on Facebook and also on YouTube. You can join that conversation. And also, if you want to do mobile and also listen to your device without being on the socials, you can do Radio Garden as well. That is 32 FM 949 Ibadan on Radio Garden. And right about now, Prof, before we went on that particular tutorial, we're supposed to discuss issue of security, but because our guest is itching to join us this morning, we're going to get back to that. Prof, already we also have, we also have Barrister Yomi Ogunlola joining us as one of our panelists this morning. Barrister, you're welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you very much, Gbolabo. It's wonderful being here. Prof, how is Kenya?
Very well. Good morning.
Good morning. Your voice tells the whole story. And let me also greet my teacher. Oh. My teacher is our guest this morning.
Oh, okay.
My teacher and my leader. Good morning, Prof.
I think his mic is mute. Professor, can you hear us? Okay. Yes, we have you.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Prof.
It's a good weekend, not only in Kenya but also in Nigeria.
All right.
Good to know that.
So it doesn't sound as if Nigeria is sidelined there. Okay, we have Professor Yilowo Yewa joining us as the immediate past Attorney General of Oyo State, former Dean Faculty of Law, UNILAG, Professor of Public Law, Faculty of Law, UNILAG, and Constitutional Lawyer and Writer. It's great to have you join us here this morning, Prof.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so you've already told us that Lagos is looking good this morning. Hope is shining as usual. And of course, we know it's a moisty city. It's always very moisty for people, especially when you are around the oceans and, of course, the water. So obviously, it's moisty this morning, Prof.
Yeah, it's overcast with a bit of, moist, and we like it that way. At least it
don't
keeps
have
us
a
cool
choice.
because
Prof,
Lagos is a bit hectic, so
Yes,
you need the moisture for the ocean to cool you down.
Prof, I hope you are not resident around the areas that I have been issued a warning. The Lekki, Ajah, Ikoyi axis.
Well, I'm on the University of Lagos campus. So
you are on safe grounds.
Although
you have the lagoon close to you.
Yes, you have the lagoon. Yes.
Okay.
So,
but I know that God will take control.
Amen.
All right, quickly, Prof, let's get into it. The new Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC boss, Ola Olukoyede, had indirectly taken a swipe at the Nigerian judiciary demanding speedy trial of financial crime cases. Should the justice sector consider special anti-corruption courts, like what Itse Sagi asked for at a point in time?
Which of the pros are you addressing that?
Yourself, your own prof. You are a guest. They are panelists.
I've been talking with, Professor Aide before now, so I just...
Obviously, we'll get back to that conversation.
You are the legal guru in the house.
Okay. Before I even go to the issue of anti-corruption, because when you talk about the editorial on prison congestion, I think it's important that we present the true picture. One of the things you should realize is that there is the protocol to the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, the second protocol that actually has made, death sentences to be, anti-human right. So there's a legal framework for that. And that also you find in some of the conventions in Europe and in Africa. Now with Nigeria, even though Nigeria still has the death sentence based on the Constitution and the Supreme Court decision in Kalu, however, it has become the practice to rely on the constitutional provisions that are beneficial to the life of the inmates that have been condemned to death. And I'm speaking about the procedure of prerogative of mercy. I had the privilege of being the chairman of the prerogative of mercy in Lagos State for 4 years before I came to Oyo State. I also became the chairman of the prerogative of mercy of Oyo State. And I can say, as a matter of fact, that the two states, from my own experience, have established a robust system for the exercise of prerogative of mercy. Now, the challenge that we have is not always with the death row people, but rather with the prison system as a whole. Now, when I was the Attorney General, the prison system, without consultation with the states, not having even performed its one mandate of custodial sentencing, decided to go into the, jurisdiction of the state in non-custodial sentences. And obviously, because they lack the jurisdictional competence, that has not been able to carry on. Because on the other hand, you are passing a law giving you the authority, and you are now asking the state to make contribution for the implementation when the state itself has its own legal framework. For instance, your state, suspended sentences and all that. So what we did was to form a committee with the federal agencies, relevant federal agencies, and the state for processes of, having an integrated, system of non-custodial sentencing involving the state and the federal. And I hope this goes on. But primarily, for use of a very lenient word, the dereliction of the prison system is as a result of the federal government handling of the prison and custodial jurisdiction that he has.
So are we saying, as a matter of fact, Prof, sorry to butt in, that the administration of criminal justice law, because within the state, there is no harmonization being done between the states and the federal government here.
Government, yes. So bottom line of it is that there's also the administration of criminal justice law that enables even the police and the judiciary to be involved in making sure that the prison is discongested. So it depends on the activism of the head of the judiciary, who is able to set up like assizes to visit the prisons and all that. So I think we have enough materials, but the truth must be stated that the dilapidated state of the prisons is because the federal government, I don't know how they manage those places. I remember the first time I went into, the maximum prison in Kirikiri, the Agodi. I mean, it was so depressing, And these are, it's like they have these 3 R's of, repentance, rehabilitation, rehabilitation, reformation, and all that.
Back into the society.
The environment doesn't encourage that. So what we did, for instance, in your state, was to set up a procedure that allows us first to commute the death sentence to life, and then from life we now follow a procedure that balances the interest of the imprisoned and the victim. So you can't just go into prison 5 years after killing somebody, you come out. That's not justice. So I thank God that is on record there. So we have guidelines. We have people who will apply to come out of prison that they are remorseful after 5 years of killing somebody. Well, bottom line of it is that we believe that you must sufficiently be there to atone for your sins. And also learn
Prof.
some trade and all that before you come out. That's a byline. Let me now go to the FCC
all right,
question.
Prof. Before you go on, I guess you need to mute your notification. It's actually having a feedback from your end. Your notification are actually making noise. All right. If you've done that, you can go ahead, Prof.
Okay. Are you still perceiving any noise?
No, not at all. For now, not at all. Okay.
Okay. Now to the EFCC question and about I think bottom line of it is that I see that as buck passing. It's buck passing. The evidence of the buck passing is in the statement that has come out about the last chairman of EFCC itself. I mean, the person who he was supposed to be heading the place was also involved in the racketeering and all that, to the extent of see how much money was found with. So bottom line of it is that EFCC itself needs to be reformed. Because we know that when you are dealing with high-end political investigation, but yes, the judiciary too sometimes can be, complicit. But the evidence is there that those people, because of the amount of money involved, can influence this. Okay, let's give a good example of 2 trials of one person in 2 different jurisdictions. I remember the trial of Ibori. I can never forget it because they had so many counts, and the judge said that they were not able to prove those counts. Now, the same Ibori was picked up before the British system. The Ibori's lawyers raised preliminary objection, and the judge ruled that simple arithmetic from the amount of money that Ibori earned in the 8 years he was governor and the amount of property and all that is alleged, he has a case to answer, because the subtraction of all his earnings without even touching anything still leaves a big gap. What happened? The following adjourned date, Ibori pleaded guilty, and the rest is history. So I believe if we look at it, why is it that the Ibori that was convicted in England was not able to be convicted based on this almost the same evidence, you know? So there are instances, you know, where you can say that some judges. What I don't particularly like, having served as Attorney General, is the tendency to tar the judiciary, to just put a black on all the. No, it doesn't work out that way. Yes, in every system, there might be those who are weak and who subject themselves to corruption. But there are some judges who are doing the hard work. So we cannot pass the buck and say, oh, judiciary is not, you know. What about the investigative process? What about
but
the
then, Prof,
prosecutorial
if you look at this, before the panelists actually comment on this one, but if you look at the processes beyond the bench, let's look at the attitude of the lawyers too. Sometimes there are insinuations or even speculations or accusations that some of these lawyers actually bungle these cases. No one knows the level of compromise they enter into, but the case you're supposed to prove within a logical conclusion ends up being jeopardized. You have instances of saying our witnesses are hostile to us. So now, beyond the bench...
That's exactly the point I'm making, that in the prosecutorial process, I'm speaking from experience. You know, I may use technical language and not speak with all my mouth, but the bottom line of it is that there is evidence that even in the prosecutorial process, there can be compromises. Because that also relates to the fundamental issue of poverty, our reward system, and the leadership that we have in Nigeria. Now, you send somebody to prosecute billions, and is going to recover billions, and you are paying him something that is less than, you know, $10 a month. And then somebody now offers him, you know, $50,000. It's no justification, but the bottom line of how many people can resist that temptation. So inherent in our reward system. And then these same people who are stealing are the people that we are buying SUV for. We are putting them in houses. The salaries. It is only in Nigeria that you cannot say how much is the salary of a governor, how much is the total package of a president, how much is the total package of the members of the Senate and the House. If you ask how much is the package of a professor, they will tell you. Even when you stay in government house, they deduct it. So bottom line of it is that we run a faulty system. And when you want to address corruption, you cannot address corruption from a legal perspective alone. You know, I remember when Baba Obasanjo was asked, what is corruption? And the person layered that question that, well, in our system, we take gift and all that. Baba quickly retorted that, yes, custom allows for some gifts, but there are some gifts that are not traditional. That when you start giving somebody house and all, that the customary gift is cola, and at best, you give the person chicken. But our gift system and all that, this we keep on, you know, but when we look at it, the corruption is a multi-dimensional problem that cannot be eradicated or combated by total reliance on the judicialization or the legal process of it. So we need to do more.
All right, let me go straight to Barrister. Barrister, do you want to come in here?
Okay. Please permit me to go back to the first issue that was addressed by Prof, the correctional centers and problems associated with their operations. Prof, is there any relationship between the issue of a unitary federal system that we're running and the problems that are evident in the correctional system?
Well, one can say that there is a connection because you ask yourself, why must prison be an exclusive matter for the federal? Why can't it be a concurrent, so that at least if a prison is being done by, so you can have federal prison, you can have state prisons, and you can check the standards, benchmark what is the practice in the federal prison compared to a state prison, but I think it's distrust, it's democracy and distrust. Unfortunately, because of partisanship and the tendency of human nature, we all believe that, look, if a person is convicted and is in a state prison, if his political mentor comes in, then he will be released. But that is exactly what is going on at the federal. We just read the governor that, cross-carpeted from PDP to APC, and all his, corruption prosecution just fizzled out. So if what we are running away from is at the federal, so why are we running away from it? Let's look at how we can set up a system that can allow both federal and state to be involved in this business and make the best out of it.
All right, let me go to Professor Remi Ayede. Prof, your mic is muted. All right, while we wait for Prof to get back. Okay, Prof.
You talked about the call by the governor for people to take up arms. I think it's related to what we are talking about because it's about the capacity of the state to carry out a responsibility, especially with regard to enforcement. And that's not the first governor to say so. And we can go on to name a number of them from Orton to Matawale and then, of course, the current governor. The issue of enforcement is very critical. And as Professor Yowo has said, it is not a thing that one government may be able to address alone when you talk about security also, for instance. But it is not necessarily by moving responsibilities from the exclusive list to the concurrent list without a proper study of what is likely to be workable. And I think that's the point that I take from Professor Oyewo's point. So that sometimes when we talk about federalism or unitary federalism, it's not a theoretical matter. It's actually a very practical matter that we have to address case-by-case basis, depending on the empirical situation on the ground and the objective that we set before us. But my question to Professor Oyewo would be, yes, you have been part of the prison issue, both in Lagos and Oyo State, and you still agree that there were issues unresolved between the federal government and the state government. How do you think the government can go about this to address those problems?
Okay, I think I will start from your first take, which is a point that has to be elaborated upon, and that is the issue of security challenges.
Yeah.
There is no doubt about it. There is evidence-based, data-based. The security architecture in Nigeria has failed woefully. And you see, if you look at its assessment from a value point of view, security still takes the biggest in our budgets, both in terms of army, the armed forces, the other security apparatus, and also the security votes that goes to the governors. So the question you ask yourself, what's the value addition of all this money to the Nigerian citizen who cannot walk around. And if you take steps backwards, just 2 decades ago or 3 thereabout, when we were young, I remember when we were young in Ibadan, I was in the University of Ife, and then when you come home, you ask your parents, you want to go for a party, they say no. You just wait for them to sleep. You oiled the hinges of the gates so that it doesn't make noise. You push out the vehicle without starting it. And then you all get into the vehicle and you go and you come back and nobody is even afraid of going out. And the days you can't put the vehicle, you get on the road. At best, you meet a lode that will tell you, and life was as simple as that. If parents sleep now, they wake up in the middle of the night to go and check whether their children are on the beds. If people want to travel now, they declare fast, prayer and fasting and all that. And the question is, why are we like this? In most climes, they say a problem once known is half solved. In Nigeria, a problem once known becomes a source of revenue for people who created the problem. Oyo State and the Southwest responded to this in the Western Nigerian Security Network that gave birth to what you call Amatekun. And, sir, this was based on intellectual research that was done by Dawn Commission. Yeah. The Southwest did not just wake up. They did an analysis, and they found out that, look, if we don't do anything, and you remember that time, even Oyo State, the Okyogo side, had become very, very, if you look at Ondo, even Ogun, Lagos, it was terrible. But look at the outcome, the moment the initiative was done. And it was done even without constitutional amendment. Kudos to the governors and especially to the chairman and also the governor of Oyo State and all the others who were very committed to it. They were able to show that in a federal system, when a problem cannot be solved by the federal, the state can make contribution. We have even gone ahead. I can tell you for free, for the period that we were there, we discovered that Amatekun as a first responder was vulnerable. When we had the prison break at Oyo, I've forgotten the name of that, he has something Gbolabo or something. When we had the prison break, the Amatekun people, because of the success, they were too exuberant. They rushed there. The first set of team that got there, they were gunned down. Why? Because the people who came for the prison break, they had AK 47 or 40 or 50 something or whatever. And these people had Shakabula. And recently, 2 weeks ago, an Amatekun person who was trying to, provide security between herders and farmers was killed.
So are you saying indirectly, Prof, that there's no legal framework yet for Amatekun to have arms and ammunition that is as sophisticated as that of AK-47?
That's the background I'm laying, because there is the Firearms Act that says the president is the one that authorizes. And the Southwest team have proposed to have the federal government set up a zonal through the police. Let the police train these people. And the joke of it is that even organs that are not so well something like civil defense and all that, they are being given empowerment to carry guns. And then headsmen carry guns. And then you are now saying that a state apparatus that you can oversight and supervise, you will not approve for them to carry gun because you believe during political period they can use the gun against the federal agents. So which means that the psyche of our federal government is that they actually use our armed forces as a coercive authority during political, to influence the outcome of our elections. And we said, no, that shouldn't be. The period of election is so short so that even if you say that during the period of election, don't let Amatekun come out, since election is a federal something. Yeah. But bottom line of it is that There is a lot of politics that's been played with the life of our people, and it is unacceptable. In fact, we've gotten to the point that we need to start saying that Nigerian lives matter. Because it's no more news. Every day you see they've carried some people from school. When it was first done in the Northeast, for a long there was rally. They've been doing it. They're doing it in Katsina almost every week. Nobody's crying out. So we need to address the monopoly of, weaponizing the federal and non-state actors. Interestingly, it is easier for non-state actors to be weaponized than a state actor at the state level to be weaponized.
All right, let me. Sorry, Prof. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Barrister, you wanted to chip something.
Yes, Prof. I want to take you back to the EFCC matter.
Yes.
Now, there's been so much controversy surrounding the appointment of Olu Koyede as the EFCC chairman. I even understand, that there was a protest at the National Assembly, and the grouse of the complainants, as the case may be, is Section 2, Subsection 3 of the EFCC Act. Is it a case of misinterpretation of that section, or what is the opposition really on this?
For the benefit of our audience, it's better you tell them what that section says.
As the court pleases. The Section 2, Subsection 3 of the Act states that the chairman of the commission must be a serving or retired member of any government, security, or law enforcement agency, not below the rank of Assistant Commissioner of Police or equivalent, and possess not less than 15 years experience. Does this section necessarily mean that whoever heads that commission must be a serving police officer?
Well, I think one thing you have to be aware of is that every appointment of the head of EFCC has always been fraught with controversy from the time of Ribadu, to the time of Mrs. Waziri, the man there before Bawa, what's his name? Magu, yes. And Bawa's own too was fought with. Now, the question is, when it comes to that, apart from judicial interpretation, there is what you call political process interpretation that is supposed to be done by constitutional authorities that gives the approval. And that is what the process of, taking them before the National Assembly. And you ask yourself, if this matter was discussed and the state, the authority, the constitutional authority that has that power to say, oh, you don't meet that requirement, does not say so, it means that they must feel that the person has met the requirement. And if anybody feels that that requirement has not been met, then probably we need a judicial interpretation of it. So in the light of that, I would say, well, if they feel strongly about it, they should subject it for the development of our jurisprudence and the democratic practice to subject that to judicial interpretation.
All right, Prof, we have to move on a little bit. And, of course, I wanted us to also look at this one. It says in 2019, the Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and Transparency International ranked the Nigerian police, legislature, and the judiciary as the most corrupt institutions in Nigeria. How can Nigeria's judicial system be revolutionized and made after the Denmark model, which is adjudged to be one of the best in the world?
Well, I think the question has the faultiness of expecting a Denmark model in a Nigerian situation.
Is it a difficult situation? Is it a difficult
seriously,
situation?
If I think people should be realistic. You can't bring a Denmark model into a Nigerian. That's an ideal that, like the song, some of the things that we say. If, for instance, you compare us to an African state, let's compare, Prof, you are in Kenya. What's the state of the police in Kenya? What's the state of the police in South Africa? What's the state of police in Egypt? What's the state of police in, Senegal or Ghana, for that matter? Yeah. Let's begin to form an African benchmark that is consistent with the, AU.
Is that workable? Is that even workable, Prof, in the real sense of things? Because if you look at the African Union, they wait until things get out of hand. Then you see them come in and say that there should be a resolution. Now, how much more do we have these bodies doing the needful?
With all due respect, once you have an international organization, international law does not have the kind of enforcement. It is of moral, even though he has persuasion. You can't expect the African Union to come and Nigeria and say Nigeria. But what they've done is that they benchmark, and for security and all that, go and look at the conventions that the African Union is coming up with, and even the Vision 2050 and all that. They are doing a lot. It is their peer review that you can find faulty, that the peer review mechanism they set up, maybe because of where they are coming from, they tend not to affect the sensibilities of each other. Yeah. So they have failed us in that light.
No, but
all right. Sorry to coach you, sir. Sorry, gentlemen. We have to go on this commercial break. We'll be back very shortly. Please do stay with us.
Feel better about your life.
32 FM, 94.9, the antidote to depression.
lótìtọ́ àti lódodo pẹ̀lú ọlọ́run ohun gbogbo ní ṣíṣe láti wá bọ́ àjàgà èṣù kó o sì bọ́ sínú ọlá inú ìsìn agbára power service tí máa wáyé ní gbogbo ọjọ́ ìsinmi sunday nínú ìjọ cathedral of jesus kingdom evangelical ministry lábẹ́ iṣẹ́ ìránṣẹ́ ọlọ́run alààyè apostle adérẹ̀mí adélékè ti sunday yìí á tún lárinrin jù bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ ìwọ ni kó o má gbẹ̀yìn níbi tí olúwa ọlọ́run alààyè ti ń fàṣẹ dáhùn sọ̀rọ̀ onípòjìpò látàgò 8 àárọ̀ ní cathedral of jesus kingdom evangelical ministry tó wà ní baálẹ̀ adétòkò street off ológun ẹ̀rú ẹ̀rúwà road ẹlẹ́yẹlé area ìbàdàn ọ̀pọ̀ onípòjìpò tó darapọ̀ mọ́ wa ló ti ń kọrin ọpẹ́ ní cathedral of jesus kingdom evangelical ministry fún àlàyé tàbí ẹ̀bì àdúrà ẹ máa pè 0806-224-0321 olùgbàlejò apostle david adérẹ̀mí adélékè lóní tó o bá lè wá ọ̀rọ̀ rẹ yóò dayọ̀ lórúkọ jésù. Nigeria's most affordable internet service provider, Tizeti Network Limited, is now live in Ibadan. Oh yes, Ibadan residents can now enjoy our truly unlimited internet service too. Tizeti prides itself on providing the lowest cost of unlimited internet access to residential and small business customers. You can now browse, stream, and game 24/7 at an amazing speed, and with an uncapped data plan, connect to Tizeti's fast and limited internet service for just 12,500 naira only per month. What more? Visit wifi.com.ng/OYO to sign up or call 01-2298-786 or send email to internet@wifi.com.ng to get started now. Unlimited internet.
ìmọ̀lẹ̀ dé òkùnkùn parada ojúlọ́bàrà aba capsule ojú ni ìmọ̀lẹ̀ ara Èdùmàrè má gbòde ọ̀sán lọ́wọ́ wa àkànṣe gbòógì tá a fi mọ̀ ìjìnlẹ̀ ṣe fún ìtọ́jú ìmọ̀lẹ̀ tí ò mọ̀lẹ̀ kedere tàbí tó ń wò báyìí ojúlọ́bàrà aba capsule egbògi oníkóró ni NAFDAC ìlú ló ń tẹ̀ gbà authentic clear vision ló ṣe é ó wà ní chemist àti pharmacy stores lágbègbè rẹ ẹ tún lè ríra lọ́fíìsì authentic clear vision tó wà business complex lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ Amidu Ajibade shopping complex gate Ìbàdàn àǹfààní ńlá wà fún alágbàtà tó ń kó ní pálí
081-4254-3127 081-4254-3127.
ojúlọ́bàrà aba capsule tí o bá sí àyípadà bó o ṣe fẹ́ tètè lọ rí dókítà rẹ o.
ojúlọ́bàrà aba capsule ilé iṣẹ́ authentic clear vision.
ṣẹ̀mí bí olóògùn ọ̀rẹ́.
ìjà òdọ́là lètò tó yanjú àwọ̀.
láàrin mùtúmùwà.
tóbi lọ́ba ògúnṣínà wọ̀kìlúmọ̀ látọ́kùn ètò.
láago mọ́kànlá àárọ̀ lọ́jọ́ ẹtì àti àbámẹ́ta.
You're listening to 32 FM 94.9. When the people became silent,
the government became oppressive. It's time to lend your voice to politics.
On 32 FM 94.9.
Safasa pelisizo simnyama.
All right, you're welcome back. You're still on to the podium on 32 FM 94.9. And our guest has been Professor Oyelawo Oyewo, and of course, the former Dean, Faculty of Law, Unilag, and the immediate past Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice for your state. And of course, before we went on that, Prof, you were actually giving reasons why you have some of these conventions coming from the AU or even ECOWAS, for instance, that it's not mandatory. It has to do with persuasion. And of course, that's a point you were trying to buttress. I think Barrister too has some things to add to that.
Yes, Prof. I want to take you up on the issue of a benchmark, for the kind of system that we are operating. Nigeria, for instance, is operating a democracy which is alien to Africa, having been borrowed from America. Majority of African countries have borrowed, these systems of government from various jurisdictions without Africa. Now, it is not the days of the great Benin Kingdom when we ran governments, using our traditional know-how. So, if the system of government we are running are borrowed from foreign jurisdictions, then what should be the appropriate benchmark? Is it a system of government that is also running in Kenya that is alien to it, running in South Africa that is alien to it? Isn't it more appropriate to go to the root where these systems were borrowed, if we're looking for a benchmark, that is? Is Prof still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know you are finished.
Oh, okay.
I think one thing you need to know is that when you talk about democracy, it's not even from the Western world. It's a Greek philosophical development that has been generally accepted as a system for governance. And the one democracy is not a be-all for all. There are conceptual tenets and requirements in democratic governance that, if you see it, like if you reduce democracy to three things. One, there should be elections involving everyone, okay? That there must be, you can't be a life president. You can't be a life governor and all that. Those are some of the elements. Then the second part of it, which is the part that most people find difficult to meet, is the requirement of good governance. Once you talk about good governance, it requires the application of rule of law. It requires transparency, accountability, and of course, the management of the resources of the state for the development of the people. And the third aspect of democracy is self-rule by the citizens in participation and in the selection of their leaders. And this is where political parties come in. So you are supposed to have an all-inclusive political system that is inclusive to the extent that anybody that wants to come can come in. And those are the things that those established democracies have developed. So an Obama can come out and say, I want to be president, and come. The question is, can an Oyelowo come out and say, I want to become, president, even governor in or your state?
I will vote for you.
Some godfather or whatever. Those are some of the things we need to address. So if you say that democracy is foreign and all that, there are so many things that are foreign. Our air conditioners are foreign, our vehicles are foreign, but we still use them. Democracy is a mechanism, it's a system that we have not been able to bite the bullets.
Now, Prof, I want to take you back a little bit on being indigenous with these solutions, because you're looking at indigenous resolutions to our problem, that we can actually look at an international model or template to define our own country or our governance structure. But then if you look at the AU stance on the issue of the coup in some African country, they suspended Niger, for instance, from its activities following the month's military coup. And now one will wonder why an AU will not rise to the aid of African countries who are signatories to its convention in instances of failing the people in terms of governance, in terms of even accountability. We see what our parliament are doing, and now the AU also, it's not blind to all of this course. The AU only waits until when you have a breakdown, when the effects are spear out, then you have the AU bringing up sanctions. I was wondering that AU was more or less like a toothless bulldog in all of these instances when you talk about bad governance, non-accountability. We saw our elections characterized with so much controversies. AU is waiting until, God forbid, the military will come up and the AU will sanction any country who does that. Now, why is it that the AU waits that much until we have this kind of breakdown or meltdown before the AU will wake up and say they're actually wielding the big stick? Why can't the AU look at the processes too and sanction? Because you see the United Nations, the US, I'm even talking about the US, not even the United Nations now, the UK, saying that certain politicians who take part in corruption or malpractices during our electoral processes will be banned from entering their countries. Why shouldn't we have these processes like this also coming from the AU and or some of these conventions that we are signatories to?
Well, I think you are right in one direction, that AU doesn't seem to be very proactive in dealing with bad governance to the extent of bringing out bad stick against their members because of the principle of, non-intervention in domestic affairs of a state. But having said that, I will not say that the AU is not doing anything, because there are levels. You don't bring out the big stick first. So you have AU conventions, you have meetings, you have deliberations, you have peer review. However, there are alignments within the AU that weakens it. There are internal, forces. You can't, for instance, deal with the problem in some states because the system is being controlled from outside. Before the Niger and all that, it's France that has been controlling all these places. So you can't go into a French francophone country and think AU will be strong there. No. So Cameroon, for instance, has a president that nobody even knows whether he has a double or whatever. AU can't go in there. So there are some alignments that are bigger, and it has always been there. Remember when Nkrumah wanted to bring that kind of AU you are talking about? Both Britain, France and all that, they made nonsense of that strong AU. So our hope cannot be from AU alone. And then don't forget that even these people giving sanctions, they are the causes of the problem. It's a vicious problem. France giving sanction and all that. Who is the person that have impoverished, Niger, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, because of resources and all that, or even America for that matter? It's interest, if our interests cannot align. That's why I believe that we can find solution from within. We have the cerebral capacity. It is just for us to overcome some of those things that makes us to lose our minds. And what are those things? One of the things that makes us to lose our minds in Nigeria, the first of it is religion. The first of it is religion, because I had certain experiences when I was Attorney General that I used to wonder that, what did I do? Can't you see what I'm talking about? But the person will not see it because he believes that the person talking does not belong to his religion, and your decision will not favor my religion. Then the second thing is ethnicity. Even in Oyo State, they will tell you, oh, this person is from Okiogun, this person is from Ibadan, this person is from Oyo. And then when you now even get inside the Ogbomoso self, they will say you are from Ogbomoso North, you are from Ogbomoso South, you are from Orire, you are from Ogolua. Why are we like this? That is what we need. And the foundational problem can only be addressed with nation building. I delivered a lecture on Tuesday addressing this problem. And the problem started colonial and post-colonial. And you even see it in the 1999 Constitution. One of the paradigms of this nation is the provision that you find in the preamble. The preamble said Nigeria shall be an indivisible, indissoluble state, nation. Whereas Section 2 says we will be an indivisible, indissoluble state. There is a marked difference between the vision of the people of Nigeria for nationhood as opposed to the constitutional provision for statehood. And it is not accidental, because statehood is what colonial masters will give to you. They don't give you nation, because the nation building requires much more. So what the colonial master would do was to give you a state where you have problems and never be able to come to their level. So going from statehood to nationhood is a deliberate act of leadership. A good example is Kagame of Rwanda. He came after the Hutus, Tutus. Ethnicity will always diminish you, will always bring the worst people to, because if somebody, a person can claim to be a religious leader and be blinded to the extent that he will have pure hatred for other people from other religion. We saw it in some of the statements coming from Gumi against Wike.
Right.
Against even Christians, that Christians can be trusted with secure. What kind of statement is that in this day and age? So bottom line of it is that we need to be able to see people for what they are. It's very sad, but religion now is become competition. And there's camp position on presidential candidate. There's we didn't used to be like that.
Okay, Prof, just before we leave this issue, please permit me to take you back to the issue of the AU, because in your response to Gbolabo's question with respect to democracy, you talked about the tenets of democracy, one of which is, this protecting the state against presidents that want to rule not in accordance with the Constitution. For instance, those presidents that are elongating their tenures, like we were saved. The scenario in Nigeria when Obasanjo attempted it. We are seeing something like that in Senegal. We saw something like that in Ali Bongo's.
Seeing it in Rwanda, with all due respect to Kagame,
okay, sir.
That allegation weakens his legacy.
Exactly, sir. So why can't a continental body like the AU, because I think this is where Gbolabo was actually coming from, why can't a continental body like the AU have a policy position on things like this in safeguarding the democracy in Africa?
Sir, they do. AU has a convention on democracy that is against tenure elongation. But you see, the people to enforce it, the AU has bodies, and the body that is the most overriding is the body of heads of states. And when you come to the body of heads of state, are you going to be raising such a matter when a third or a fourth of the head of state sitting down are people that are violating that? So that's the inherent weakness. If there was an external body apart from the heads of state, the same thing we had when we had the African human rights, provisions. We had bodies that would make recommendations to head of state, and that's why we transited from African, Commission to the African courts. So if we are able to get within the AU a body that can drive the enforcement of these, and the African courts, of course, is helping. And then the regional courts, like we have some of the pronouncement of the ECOWAS court. In fact, one of the pronouncement of the ECOWAS court with relating to security is the case of Reverend Father Umfra against the Nigeria with respect to provisions of Section 14, subsection 2, that says that the primary responsibility of the government shall be the protection of the life and property of its citizens.
But the Nigerian government never obeys.
I think we also
the Nigerian government never obeys
some of this. I think Professor Ayede too wants to say something, but
Yes,
something keeps coming up my mind, Prof. Just before you go ahead, that the way Prof is sounding, Professor Yellow, it looks as if we should take the lane of Jerry Rawlings, because at a point I'm just wondering, how do we get to that point of sanity or sanitizing the process? I don't know. But then, Prof, you have the floor.
Yeah, because the analysis that has been going on lose sight of the very fact that responsibilities are spread. The AU and organizations like the UN, they have limited capacity. And as Prof has made emphasized before, they rely more on moral suasion. They have all these principles all over the place, but they can't replace the role. They play the role of civil societies within countries. They can never develop to a situation where they have a standing army that can intervene in a country and determine what is going to happen there. I think we shouldn't look in that direction. We should look internally at what can we do.
So we should go by the way of Jerry Rawlings.
Not just, that's not
obviously, because when things aren't working, the laws, the policies hasn't working.
Go to Zambia to learn what is going on in terms of leadership in Africa. Successively, they've had very effectively. That's one of the leaders won the Mo Foundation, Ibrahim Foundation for Leadership in Africa. I mean, there are examples of countries in Africa where leadership has been demonstrated. We should look in that direction rather than thinking of Jerry Rawlings and
Professor Ayede. Yeah, Professor, would that be the president that was admonishing, political office holders in his country that were asking for SUVs and all that?
That's the current one. There's another president already that won that also from Zambia. So you can go to several African countries and see where leadership is working. And then we can take a cue from there. We don't have to think about Jerry Rawlings because it's just behind us here.
Okay,
I absolutely agree with you, sir, because the third aspect of democracy is what you are talking about. That is the role of civil society. And that is the biggest, and we keep on whining like if we are helpless.
Absolutely.
Look, we don't do anything. For instance, when was the last time that when we were in school, we used to go out on issues?
Yes.
I mean, even Nigerian Association of Nigerian Students or all that, they become monetized.
But where is the civic space? Because we keep talking about pressure group. Is the problem the pressure group or the civic space? Because now if you have the civic space so shrunk that people no longer find the confidence or the courage to go on the streets because of fear of being killed or reprisal attacks like what we saw with the NSAS, then how does the pressure group really work? And now that even takes me to the next question. Is the news of 160 million naira loan obtained by the leadership of Nigeria's House of Representatives for the purchase of one Land Cruiser Prado as official vehicle for each of its 360 members a perfect demonstration of the recklessness and carefree posture of Nigeria's ruling elite in a country set to be bleeding economically? And I'm going to ask Professor Yellowo, because you talked about the instances of, the pressure group should go ahead and do all of these instances. I keep wondering, how do people go out when they're going to be faced with a militarized environment? They are not going to be free in a democratic system.
I was giving an example of my time. Times have changed. The activism of civil society is not limited to picketing and street protests now.
Yeah.
Okay. We have the social media. Even this NSAS thing, it was a social media movement. Me Too was a social media movement. Yeah. If people sufficiently rally around an idea, I think people will be able to conscientialize those people who are violating the conscience of the nation. I believe at this time, when sacrifices are being called upon by everybody to be made, and palliative have not even reached anybody.
At all.
It is downright immature and irresponsible for the priority of our representatives to be SUV. It shows that the political class have not learned any lesson. And this is a conspicuous and wasteful expenditure that does not add value. Because those are the people that should be saying, okay, there's hardly any one of them that doesn't have a vehicle. You know? And most of the people that you are giving this vehicle, they are not going to use it, because they are going to put it on something until 4 years when it will become their own, so they can take it in good shape. You know? So bottom line of it is that it seems like if we've lost it. And it's a phenomenon that is going on around the world. You see the Trump phenomenon of alternative truth, shameless, but they're lying and all that. It's a very sad commentary that at this time, with all that is going on, the priority of our people is to get SUV instead of declaring emergency, making laws, and saying that, look, how do we get the naira to become even 400 or 500? How do we get this employment? How do we stop the mass exodus of youths from Nigeria? How do we secure the future and make sure that we don't take actions that will precipitate and provoke a coup d'etat? Because that's a reality. Because if we go on like this, there are people watching, and before you know it, it will be that I remember in 1980 something when Shagari, they were doing this landslide and campaign and all that. It's reminiscent of that. And we just woke up and it was listed, all these things for the landslide, for champagne and all that. I hope we won't in the immediate future be having this as one of the excuses for some people to believe that they need to resort to violence. I think the political class must really start to look within and see that what they are doing. Like they say in Yoruba, they say ara lelon pelamodi. We do a lot of things that we consider to be amodi, whereas it's outright metallic madness, to borrow the language of Professor Wole Soyinka. We're only
Prof,
Okay, please.
there's an issue I also want to have your position on. During the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, there were so many intervention programs intended to take Nigerians, majority, the poorest of the poor Nigerians, out of poverty. Sadly, however, by the end of Buhari's tenure and the heralding of Tinubu's administration, one finds that the same people who the Buhari administration claims to have taken out of poverty with their intervention programs appear to be the very same people who are applying now for Bola Ahmed Tinubu's palliatives and intervention programs. Is it a right way to go for this new administration with this knowledge that all those intervention programs of Buhari really didn't take the people out of poverty? Is it a right way for Bola Ahmed Tinubu to take now, as we are witnessing?
I think it's a commentary on our, polity. It's like if our polity is them against us, and we do divisive things that waste. I believe if we start to be doing data-based evidential governance that is driven by data, it should be very easy. Because I know, for instance, I was in government under the Buhari presidency at the state level, even in an opposition party and all that. It was very clear that most of the people that were taken by the political party, the ruling party. Because you hear people of PDP saying, we don't know these people, And even then, those people were documented. There were biometrics that were taken and all that. Why should it be the same people? And we are advocating the reality of, transformative federalism that looks at collaboration between the federal and the state government at another level of zonal collaboration. So this kind of thing, you can have zonal, the 6 geopolitical zones. Already we have them. We have the Southwest Governors Forum. We have the Southeast for Governors Forum. But these things can be structured. And in fact, the beauty of it is that the investment required into these things are not that heavy. So what you do, for instance, the South-South, they have Brace Commission. The Southwest has Odua. The North has Gamji or MPC and all that. So what we are advocating is that, look, let's put structure to these things and let's set up infrastructure and development agenda.
All right, we have to go on this one. Sorry, SAN, for actually butting. We have to pay more bills right about now. We'll be back shortly.
Yeah.
Asalaamu alaikum gbogbo Mùsùlùmí. Ilẹ̀kùn Umura December tún ti ṣí sílẹ̀ láti kọ́ wọ́n ní pẹ̀lú Alhaji Sheikh Muhyiddin Ajani Bello. Ogúnjọ́ oṣù kejìlá ọdún 2023 lágbéra. Káàsì padà lọ́jọ́ kẹta oṣù kìíní ọdún 2024. Ọjọ́ mẹ́rin ní Medina, ọjọ́ mẹ́jọ ní Mecca. Àpapọ̀ gbogbo ẹ̀ ìrọ̀rùn ló bá dé. Ilé-iṣẹ́ alálùbáríkà Aljana Hajj and Umrah Service Nigeria Limited ló ń pẹ́ gbogbo wa. Bẹ́ẹ̀ bákan náà, àǹfààní ti sílẹ̀ láti tètè máa fọwọ́ sílẹ̀ àti láti máa sanwó díẹ̀díẹ̀ fún Umrah Ramadan àti Hajj 2024. Ilégbé ìrọ̀rùn tí ò jìnnà sí haram àti mọ́ṣáláṣí ànábì Mádínà. Sìyára ọ̀fẹ́ lójoojúmọ́. Oúnjẹ àjẹdọ́wẹ́kẹ̀ lẹ́ẹ̀mẹ́ta lójúmọ́. Tó fi mú ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ètò tí ó mú ká ẹ ṣe àṣepé hajj. Ajẹ́pẹ́ a máa ń fa àkókò ṣòfò mọ́. Ẹ wá darapọ̀ mọ́ àwọn hujjah lọ́fíìsì Aljana Travel Hajj and Umrah Services, Navada Plaza, Elewure Bus Stop, opposite Liberty Stadium, Suite 140/142, Liberty Road, Ìbàdàn. Fún ẹ̀kúnrẹ́rẹ́ àlàyé 0904-4444-945. Umura oṣù kejìlá ọdún ìpẹ̀lú bàbá wa Alhaji Sheikh Muhyiddin Ajani Bello. O gbọ́dọ̀ gbẹ̀yìn ń bẹ̀.
Mọ́mì wa ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ mọ̀ wípé mílíkì ń bẹ nínú Milo. Milo Active Go tí àwọn ọmọdé fẹ́ràn gan ń fún wọn ní ìdá 15 káṣíọ̀mù tí wọ́n nílò lójoojúmọ́. Káṣíọ̀mù ń jẹ́ kí egun àwọn ọmọ le, ó sì ń ṣe wọ́n láàyàn àǹfààní mìíràn. Milo, okun láti tẹ̀síwájú.
For the top 10 banging songs across Nigeria,
top 10 super songs across Africa,
the Top 10 Countdown is your show.
Saturdays 12 to 1 p.m. with Danica and King Kenny.
Just because you do not take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you.
The funds spent were properly spent because we got them from intervention funds.
Only you waka come. There is God.
I don't know which party my wife belongs to, but she belongs to my kitchen and my living room and the other room.
Stay in tune with politics on 32 FM 94.9.
All right, you're welcome back. You're still on to the podium this morning on 32 FM 94.9. And of course, my name is Gbolabo, famous school. And we still have our guest, Professor Oyelawo Oyewa, with us, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. And of course, we have our panelists too, Barrister Yomi Ogunola, and of course Professor Remi Ayede. And this is quite sad. We're getting this particular one saying that there is a stolen car today. There was a car being picked up, Sky Blue Big Daddy Camry, stolen at 16 and Fanny Road opposite Felling Car Rental with plate number MUS 841GC. Call this number in case you might have come across this particular vehicle. The numbers to call 080-37955-451 or 080-340-50-265. Quite sad one here. And of course, the car itself is a Sky Blue Big Daddy Camry, stolen at 16 Amfani Road, opposite Felling Car Rental, with plate number MUS 841GC. You can call the number I called earlier, that is 080-3795-5445. or 080-340-50-265, or you can report to the nearest police station around you. It's still the podium here on 32 FM 94.9. And of course, we're going to open the phone lines right about now. But before we do that, Prof, I want us to quickly look at the rising debt profile of Nigeria. And today, Nigeria's total public debt stock as at June 30, 2023 was 87.38 trillion naira, an equivalent of $113.40 billion. How do we salvage Nigeria's economy through this debt crisis? We're still borrowing more.
It's very sad that we are borrowing more and we are getting to the place where our debt profile is even higher than our reserve, you know, particularly when you consider that by the end of the tenure of President Olusegun Obasanjo, we had debt cancellation. So we are not talking about debts that started from 1960. We're talking about debts that started from 2007. And in less than, 5 decades or 3 decades, we have mounted up debts like that. And when you ask yourself, what are we using the money for? We're using it to buy SUV. We're using it to buy planes. We're using it to buy bulletproof vehicles. We are not using it for roads, because one of the things that is depressing is to look at Nigeria with all the resources we have. So bottom line, it's a wake-up call. Even our resource is becoming an outdated resource, to put it that way. Oil is becoming outdated because more and more there are alternatives to oil in usage, and one day we'll just wake up. But we are also so blessed with so many other resources. Apart from oil, we don't have a comprehensive, effective management of our solid minerals. So we need to start moving towards diversification of our economy. Because if we don't diversify our economy, we are. And then we need to be able to move towards a consumptive society to a productive society.
But then, is that the reason why Lagos State is that indebted? It's one of the indebted states, the most indebted state in Nigeria, with 996.44 billion naira in quarter 2 2023 debt profile analysis, and is also projected as a state with the largest internally generated revenue of 2.64 trillion naira. Is it a state living above its standard, or what it can afford? Or the problem of this consumption you're talking about, what we produce, it's not enough?
It's a problem of consumption. It's a problem of, planning, and also a problem of, excessive migration into Lagos. There are so many problems, and of course, there's the problem of corruption. We can't take that away. So out of this money, how much were really spent on infrastructure? Yes, infrastructure, Lagos has more infrastructure than any state in Nigeria because of the internally generated revenue. But internally generated revenue, the population, the demands on its infrastructure far outweigh, what we are seeing in terms of income and federal income and internally generated revenue. But taking it to the national level, I believe with all the problems we are having, sincerely, the leadership of this nation must call itself to order. We need to, the president, when he was governor of Lagos State, was very, very innovative. I mean, very innovative. He used intellectuals and all that. I believe we need to know that ideas rule the world. The idea space in Nigeria has been left fallow, to use the word. Our educational system. Look, I heard that they approve some institutions to start running again. You ask yourself, in the face of this, can't we first do an assessment, a need assessment? Do we actually need this new, because even if you look at ASU, they're agitating for increase of salary of, of their staff, rightly so. And then you are now creating more. Is that what we need at this time?
So obviously, I think there's an aspiration, but I will allow Barrister in, and of course, Prof. Ayedetu is standing by. But then I'm wondering that the way you sounded, it sounded as if our president is more of a politician than a technocrat now. From what from that explanation.
It's leadership. It's not only the president. There are people around him, and he inherited something. Like President Putin said. They asked him, "What's the difference between the American president and the Russian president?" He said, "Obama, brilliant as he is, when he gets to be president, there are forces that will stop him from achieving his vision." So that is it. And he has 4 years. So there are forces that are arresting the vision. The presidency gets captured. And they call them cabal, they call them this. There is the civil service there, the public service there. All these things, they look, by the time I was coming out of government, I knew that they have used step-down transformer on me.
Oh God, that's a huge revelation. All right, I'm going to reel out the numbers and of course give the floor to Barrister. I think he wants to also add one or two things. The numbers are 070-55,949 or 080-97949. For our international audience, you can call this number +234 9062 All right, Barrister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gbolabo. Now, Prof, I know that this is another area of your specialty. We have just talked about the mounting debts of the nation. Now, prior to the advent of Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government, some items were banned from gaining access to foreign exchange directly from the CBN. Recently, there appears to have been a lift on the ban for these commodities such that they can now compete for the scarce foreign exchange with other sectors of the economy. I want to know your position, especially at a time when it has become very obvious that majority of the world are applying protectionism to safeguard, their domestic economy.
I guess Prof got the question. We have a caller here, and of course we go back to Ayede. Professor Ayede's fans are saying they want to hear his voice more. All right, we'll get back to that. Prof, please can you say something? Your fans are saying they want to hear your voice too. Maybe you add up to what Barrister said.
Apparently, they've seen that I've been grounded to the back and they use step-down transformer on me.
Please go ahead, Prof.
I was just thinking that the issue of the presidency, it's a little bit more complicated than that. And when you have an individual who has said that the presidency is his life ambition, and he has taken decades, to covet and prepare for that office, isn't it a little bit surprising that we are now talking about a cabal when people are talking about him moving his Lagos people to Abuja? So they are talking about Lagosizing the Abuja. So how can we then say it's the leftover cabal from the previous administration that is capturing the president? Don't you think, Prof, that we should actually attribute whatever success and failure to the current president rather than some cabal working from the shadows?
Yeah, I totally agree. But you see, the reality of the politics, even at the state level or at the federal level, is that the president does not act alone. Even if he brings his people, I can give example of your state. Kudos to my principal governor, Sheyi Makinde. When we came in, he brought in technocrats, and some of us, he just took us because we had reputational credibility. I am one of them. I didn't know him until he has won his election. He wanted an attorney general, an Oyo State person, and I was able to fit the bill of and he brought to me, and what he wanted us to do, we did it. But the reality of governance and politics is that even when you want a paradigm shift, there are those who are entrenched in the existing paradigm that will resist the paradigm shift. And that's why we are not having a new Nigeria. Because these entrenched paradigms are so debilitating of change that they sap the energy to use the word step down the energy in the paradigm. And interestingly, governing a nation is different from governing a state. Yes, Governor Tinubu did wonders in Lagos, but we are talking about Nigeria now, So I'm not making an excuse. At the end of the day, like the American president said, the boss starts with the president.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's supposed to go to Abuja and drain the swamp. That's actually the most fundamental responsibility of politics.
It's an agent's table. It's an agent's table. The mess, there are layers and layers and layers of it. And sometimes, too, you can just say, okay, let me first of all pursue my own agenda. But as you know, sir, in another 4 years, we'll be debating the merits and demerits of this administration.
Definitely.
So
now, Prof, I still want you to take the
experience language. Whatever they are able to do, we will judge them when the time comes.
Prof, I still want you to take the issue of the goods, the items that have been unbanned, and in the face of scarce foreign exchange. What's your position on it?
Seriously, on the banned and unbanned something, there's been arguments against it in the sense that, look, when they were banned, people went into borrowing and investment to take up these spaces so that our import and consumption of foreign exchange, that's a very good argument. However, the people controlling the CBN now came up with this. You see, for me, that is not something that we should engage too much attention on. Because like we say in our local language, this for me is lapalapa.
Absolutely.
Because in the issue of no, there are fundamental things. Look, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is the CBN and the governor of CBN. We saw the powers of the CBN that can cripple a nation and bring it to a halt.
Absolutely.
Just by some excursionist policies that have no reality in what we are doing. Somebody woke up and said, okay, we are doing Naira design. Yes, we did Naira redesign. It meant people did not have money to do campaign, to bribe. But where is the money we paid for? Where is it? And then you find the foreign exchange. The thing has been shown. Somebody had 51 Bureau exchange. And for the 8 years was getting the exchange rate of 200 or something. So how do we explain
all right, Prof,
this?
let me take you up on the subsidy issue. One of the reasons cited by President Bola Tinubu for scrapping fuel subsidy was a claim that the entire regime was soaked in corruption. Do you think the ripple effect of that policy change, given the huge socio-economic distortion it has caused across Nigeria, has been worth it, so to say? What would we say is a what?
Well, that's another question that's not easy to answer. Yes, it's not easy to answer.
You are on the hot seat this morning, Prof.
No, but we are all Nigerians and we know our problems. It's the solution that's the problem. Now, as an oil producing state, we have no business saying that we are importing oil. Why? A refinery business is not rocket science. If you look at states like Venezuela, or even you talk about Algeria, they have the lowest cost of oil, and they are all producing countries. Why can't Nigerians benefit? However, the oil subsidy removal has had a ripple effect, not only within Nigeria, but even the neighboring states. So the consumption of oil, petroleum products have thoroughly come down.
That's right.
That is a fact that's been established. Also, the unfortunate effect of that is that it has added to the inflation because prices are always going up. I mean, there are times when I always have to apologize to my wife when she goes to the market to buy something and she comes back and probably the money we have budgeted for it is not enough. And, the thing agitates the people and everybody is agitated. But agitation alone does not solve the problem, because if the political class does not respond, and for your information, the subsidy that has been said to be removed, the independent oil marketers said the subsidy is back.
From
I
the
hope
back
you know
door.
Oh, yes.
Those are the government has said those are rumors, and it hasn't been
Well,
confirmed
but
coming
it's a
from the
matter of thinking.
NNPCL.
That's why we need to be data driven.
Exactly.
They have given data. They've given the landing cost for the oil and the price for the sale of the oil. And let the government show that the landing cost is not like that.
Prof,
they didn't even tell us how much they got from subsidy, and now they are still accumulating debt. So
now,
there's a problem of accountability as well.
Exactly. Prof, there is even an issue. There is even an issue. Because this issue of subsidy, importation of refined products, and all of that appears to be a problem that will be with us for quite a long time, except we make hay while the sun shines. We have the example.
All right, we have a caller. Sorry, Barrister, for cutting that short. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, the numbers again are still 070-55,949 or 080-97,949. All right, Prof. Barrister, you can go ahead.
Now, Prof, we have the example of Edo State, and I think Cross River states too, that have come up with modular refineries of their own. Is it impossible for states to have and run their modular refineries, whether through public-private partnership or whatever? I had even made a suggestion. The days of spoon-feeding governors should come to an end. Let their monthly allocations be paid to, part of their monthly allocations be paid to them in crude oil. Let them go and look for what they can do about it. You cannot leave the whole load on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu when the governors are just sitting down there and eating up money that comes in.
Sorry, Barrister, we have a caller here. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, please. What's the name and where you're calling us from?
My name is Ola Ushebi Tolani.
All right, please go ahead, Tolani.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the numbers again are 070-55,949 or 080-97,949. And of course, our socials, 32FM 949 Ibadan. On Facebook and also on YouTube. Hello, good morning.
I'm John Uzan Jacob.
All right,
thank you, sir. I love the analyst there. The EFCC chairman, by my own understanding, is eminently qualified to hold that position. Having served there for 15 years, is not a must be a serving or retired police officer. Most EFCC, where he has served, is equally a paramilitary organization. In my own belief, they carry arms. So he is eminently qualified. But those who feel he is not, I think the best thing for them, let them approach the court. Then the judiciary, as one of the analysts has recently, is a problem to the war against corruption. Let me remind the lawyer there that on May 2020, Supreme Court nullified the entire trial and the conviction of Odius Okalo on the ground that it was wrong and unconstitutional for Justice Mohammed Idris, who was elevated to the Court of Appeal bench in the middle of the trial, to return to the Federal Court to conclude the case. The Apex Court also nullified Section 396 of Section 7 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which empowered the then President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Zainab Bukachua, retired, to authorize Justice Idris to return to the Federal High Court to conclude the case as unconstitutional. Meanwhile, this section has been implemented by 31 states of the Federation, and people have been convicted under that section. John Newsom Jock is my name.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. What's the name and where you're calling us from?
My name is
All right, it's actually not a smart kid show. All right, the numbers again are 070-55,949 or 080-97,949. I guess the children are home and they're listening to us, and they also want to participate
They want to be
in the conversation of this morning. All right, Barrister.
Yeah, so, Prof, why is it impossible, or is it impossible for states to run their own modular refineries? Because if we can do that, if we have 36 states running their own modular refineries, don't you think that we probably will be able to resolve this crisis, on our hands?
Well, I think the framework for that has to be worked out. Because the first question is where are the states going to get their refinery? You said the federal government should pay them like an oil swap with oil. That in itself, it's not a very straightforward, approach to the problem. So if there is the need for modular refineries by each of the states, that will probably bring down the cost but you have to also know that the transporting in the absence of the infrastructural, framework that can deliver oil. Oil is not something that you can just be doing all this trailer thing to be viable. We don't have the pipeline connections. And then when you have the pipeline connection, do we have the security to secure it? Or we are going to be doing a contract that a private person will be doing to secure it, So there are all kinds of, but where there is a will, then there will be a way. If we have a will to really, really address our problems, we must think out of the box. We can't continue in this centralist approach of everything must be federal government, federal government, federal government. So I agree with you that there are opportunities for us to be great by taking our problems and looking at practical, pragmatic, effective, and efficient solutions that will give us a win-win, approach. Most of the problems we have been solved in other climates, and we can also borrow from the experiences and learn from them and be able to. But we've refused to learn. We've refused to move forward. And we are micromanaging problems that are getting out of hand.
All right, Prof. We have a caller here. Let's see if we could pull through.
Okay, sorry.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, please. What's the name and where are you calling us from?
This is Gbolabo calling from Ibadan. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay, this is everybody. Personally, I could not understand the policy direction of this administration. Most of what the past administration did that is wrong, they are also trying to emulate it now. And when we continue this, it's the same thing, the same direction, and there was no result. And we continue again. What else do you want to say? What are we expected to be the outcome of it? And as our lawyer said about the modular refinery, I believe there are a lot of things that we can gain on it instead of waiting for moribund refinery for all years. I've been making a lot of money. During Jonathan, they said they do maintenance. At the end of the day, nothing comes out of the maintenance.
All right.
Our former president too. So I believe we have to do something differently before we can see out.
All right. Thank you so much for that submission. And of course, because of our time is fast spent, I also quickly wanted us to look at the issue of the drug abuse. It's a major problem in Nigeria, and I do know that subsequent, or would I say, a number of Minister of Justice, that's for federal, as a matter of fact, talking about the Attorney General of the Federation, I've seen a couple of them come up with some kind of policies to reduce the effect of drug abuse in Nigeria, or even stop the menace by collaborating with relevant agencies. But now the Nigerian Senate has appealed to the federal government to declare a state of emergency on illicit drug abuse. What is the best approach to stopping transborder drug trafficking cartels and drug abuse in Nigeria? Prof, if you look at all of these instances, it's a big menace. Many parents are crying, and the youths are taking on to drugs these days. And I do remember that some of the political leadership arguments during the 2023 elections or before the elections was that which youth are you talking about to take powers? Are those youth who have abused themselves with drugs that can't even think are the ones who are going to leave Nigeria in their hands? Now, what do we make up with this generation of youth that have taken to drugs, so to say? And we've seen it as a big problem in Nigeria as it is.
I think we must get perspective. We can't condemn the next generation of youths. I work with youths in the university on several. They are fantastic. In fact, there are some youths that I believe they have done very well in the circumstances of how they found themselves. But the problem of drug abuse, it starts from the home. You know, charity begins at home. A lot of parents are producing children they can, follow up. And also it has to do with both ethnic and religious values. We need to get to the point that we can tell ourselves the truth. I like the traditional statement that we used to hear when we were growing up. Omobere, Oshibere. Now people boast of having 20 children in this day and age. How are you going to cope with 20 children? And
but Prof, let's look at our economic situation. Do we just say it's a home front now? Because I could still say before now that people could say there is a first class, second class in terms of our class society. If you have the class of society, you have the average, you have those that are doing well. But now it appears that we even have classless society.
The bottom line of it is that if you want to trace a problem from its roots, these youths come from homes. And we have to address the fact that there are so many of these people who are giving birth to. Look, we have an explosion of child pregnancy in Ibadan. People who are 13, 14 giving birth to children. And what value can they, if they are children themselves? So that's the starting point.
But Prof,
and then we look at the economics of it.
But Prof,
for your information, there is NDLEA in every state and in every local government. So I agree with you. For trans-border, we need to be more vigilant because parks, where you have parks, where you have people selling international tickets, in fact, there is a collaboration between NDLA and NAPTIP because these things, the crime, they seem to work together. But in terms of the drug, the pharmaceutical system, during the time when we had Akunyile, NAFDAC was so fantastic and all that. So we need to look at those gatekeepers, Nigerian Customs, Immigrations, DSS, and all the others. And of course, within the state, the police need to also collaborate. So there is a collaboration, at the Security Council level and each state and at the federal level. But you have to see that where there is a return, where these journeys, these things are lucrative, people will engage in it. And poverty too is people who transport these things, they are doing it out of frustration and poverty. So Prof, it's not a one-slice solution. Okay. It's a multifaceted problem, and we need to address it. And one is not more important. One is as important as the other. So we need to look at the home front too. What kind of family settings are we having? What kind of children are we bringing up? And somebody will tell you there are categories of children. There are children who are from homes. There are children who are from houses. There are children who are from the streets. And there are children who don't belong to anybody.
Now, Prof, I want to ask you this, about the NDLEA. What is your assessment of NDLEA in the fight against drugs?
Well, as Attorney General, I work with NDLEA, and I know that within the resources made available to them, they are trying. Drugs are in neighborhoods that are not very easily penetrable. They are not easily penetrable. So, and then we have collaborators for economic reasons, like hotels. There are hotels where drugs are what takes place because the hotelier is being paid a monthly amount by the drug baron to use the facilities. I remember at one time we identified one hotel, we wanted to demolish it and acquire it. So we need to make laws that will target those, black spots. And we also need to upgrade our intelligence and policing. Intelligence and policing is necessary for enforcement of drug laws. It's not as if we don't have the drug laws, but the enforcement. For your information, NDLEA has challenges in terms of resources. At least I know that for Oyo State, they have challenges. And why? Because the federal government is the one that's supposed to finance this project. So that is a challenge. Within the resources that they have brought awareness, they are enforcing, but the lucrativeness of drug, even at the international level, if you look at UNIDOC and all the others, it's a trade that generates billions. So you can't treat it with kid gloves. And for as long as there is, even pharmaceuticals, our pharmaceutical control is very weak.
And when people use it to depress their, sometimes you also have instances of depression. And because I was actually looking at the societal impact too, where people can afford their daily meal or their own debt. And sometimes they take to drugs. Sometimes they are dead at the end of the day. But quickly, let me go to Professor Ayede. What are your parting shots on this?
Well, I think that the volume of problems around the drug abuse is clearly underestimated. I mean, if you look at the videos making wave around WhatsApp, we have a big problem now. I don't know if you saw the Milo Push video. And there are several other videos like that around drugs and drug abuse. I think we need to really take time to look at this issue in great detail for us to unravel the challenges that come from that problem.
All right, I must say a big thank you to our guests for doing this with us this morning, Professor Oyelowo, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and of course, immediate past attorney general of Oyo State. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. And of course, to our panelists, yes, we also say a big thank you for doing this with us. To those who listened and those who also communicate with us on our socials, we say a big thank you to you too. That's the much we can take on the podium for this week. My name is Gbolabo. Famous call. Bye for now.
We can bet that you've never listened to radio like this before.
You can bet that you've never listened to radio like this before. It's the voice of happiness. 32 FM 94.9.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kenny Blacko, and we are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're in your house and you're bored and you don't know what to do in your life, oh God, listen to 32 FM 94.9. So if you're not listening to 32 FM 94.9, in case you're wondering who is talking, my name is Kenny Black and I crave your indulgence. So keep listening to 32 FM 94.9.